Let's focus on the announcement from yesterday. Murugappa Group company, CG Power, was locked up in upper circuit. Announcement coming through from the company that they plan to set up a OSAT facility. This is unrelated to their existing lines of businesses, but the market, of course, is sensing the opportunity is large. It's an up-and-coming space. Renu Bed Pugalia, a Senior Vice President Research at IIFL Institutional Equities, she's joining us now to talk to us about this. Renu, good morning. Good to have you with us here. First of all, Prashant here, could you tell us very simply, what is OSAT? What is this line of business? What does it mean to be in this line of business?
OSAT essentially is a part of the overall electronics value chain, and within that focuses on the rare end of the semiconductor. So once the semiconductor is prepared by the foundries, it needs to be processed, cleaned, cut, and then wired, bonded, etc., repackaged and tested for use by end users. So compared to the entire value chain, OSAT is relatively more labor intensive while equally being capital intensive in nature. So to that extent, this is where we are seeing that while India has been trying to increase the level of electronics manufacturing in the country, the second layer in terms of backward integration is to bring electronic back-end manufacturing, which is where we have seen announcements like Micron, a couple of EMS companies have shown their intention to be in OSAT, and now CG Power recently, as in yesterday, announced that they want to set up this business. So it is a part of the global supply chain within the electronics part that we see here.
Okay, so this would constitute as assembly, Renu, in the overall value chain?
It is
late stage towards the end? Yeah.
Yeah, so it is assembly, cleaning, some processing, and repackaging and testing.
Okay.
So it's outsourced semiconductor assembly and testing. It is also called ATMP. In other words, in terms of assembly, testing, and packaging of semicon. So basically, the entire function of OSAT is to take the semicons which are prepared by the fabs or the foundries and make it ready for the end users to use it in their SMT lines.
Okay, and the end user would be companies like who? I mean, who would they? I mean, a company the OSAT line would send it to? Would the final
end users? Yeah, so the eventual end users are EMS companies who will assemble and make it into PCBA format and then thereafter use it in the end products, could be healthcare, automotive, industrial.
Sure.
So there are vendors for this.
Okay. Now, I remember Kaynes wants to get into this as well, which is another listed entity. Are there any others? And do we have a size of the opportunity here? Is there any way to kind of put together some number on that?
So overall, if we see based on industry reports, the semiconductor market in India last year was pegged at close to $27 billion. And this is expected to grow at 20% CAGR. OSAT as a market is completely new to India because we don't have any OSAT companies currently. But if you look at the type of, the nature of the business, Micron has announced $2.75 billion of capex. So in the next 12-18 months, if we see, they will ramp up to almost $2 billion plus of revenues once the factories are commissioned. So similar, the asset turns in this business typically are just about 1x or maybe between 0.8 to 1x in terms of the capital commitment. So the OSAT market in India is evolving. I think in the next 4 to 5 years, it would be again a multi-billion-dollar market in India once we have 5-7 ventures operationalized.
Now, what does this mean for CG Power as a stock, and what should investors expect, Renu?
So for CG Power, clearly it's an unrelated diversification, but they have been generating very strong cash flow from the core operations. And the group has mentioned of their initiatives and intentions to have presence in electronics value chain. So to that extent, CG becomes the front-ending vehicle to drive this initiative and entry into electronics market. Nothing better than OSAT because even if the market is highly capital intensive, it's very well tightly linked with the global supply chain. And more interestingly, Government of India is given very attractive capital subsidies. So central government is giving up to 50% capital subsidy. And state governments, depending which state government you set up the plant and facility at, they can also offer subsidies of up to almost 20-25%. So if the 70% plus of the capital cost is subsidized by government subsidies, then the overall return profile of the business looks very attractive at almost 30 times plus. So for CG Power, definitely they are sitting on a strong cash chest. From a longer term perspective, they get to play into the electronics supply chain. which will have some backward pull through in terms of their ambitions to be in the EV market and the industrial market where they're already present. But bulk of the initial volumes, what we understand, should be there for the external stakeholders and customers within the
Got it.
domestic market and global supply chain.
Renu, a last question. Have you been able to put together have you been able to speak with the management, put together a size of, I mean, what could this be a couple of years down the line in terms of revenue potential for CG Power, or too early?
Yeah, I think management has not clearly commented, but if we go by the global numbers and the trends of this business, based on the capex that they have announced, we think that they should be close to 5 to 6,000 crores kind of revenues over a 5-year time frame once the operations stabilize, and which also means effectively with almost 10% kind of net margins, which OSAT companies tend to generate. It could generate 5 to 6 billion kind of annual steady state profits once the business
5 to
matures and
600,
stabilizes.
5 to 600 crores.
Yeah, 5 to 6 billion rupees or 5 to 600 crores,
5
whatever you
yeah,
want
sorry,
to
billion
refer.
rupees. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Renu, great conversation. Thank you so much for explaining that to us, and appreciate you joining in. I mean, I think CG Power perhaps could be the stock of the day as well. I think the pre-open is up on us, and look at the CG Power stock, 20% yesterday, and it's up another 6% or so right now. I think it settled up 6% in the pre-open on about 2 lakh shares in terms of volume. So just almost at about $500.